welcome to Clean Waterways and You. So today, let's take a look at these pictures and which of these activities do you enjoy? Do you like fishing? Do you like going out to see the manatees? How about paddleboarding, seeing the dolphins, kayaking, birding, surfing, walking on the beach in the morning, seeing those turtle tracks? These are all activities that we get to enjoy here in Florida, and they all relate to our waterways. So no matter what hobby you have, you probably enjoy something related to the waterways. So in order to continue to enjoy these activities, we really need to keep our waterways clean, clear, and tangle-free, which is our topic for the day. So let's start with clean. And if we take a look at what happens in these pictures if we don't keep our waterways clean, and what happens is we get trash in the water, and you can see the sea turtle often mistakes plastic for jellyfish, and they eat it. And then their system gets clogged, and they get weak and sicker, and they can die from ingested plastic. If we leave trash on the beach, the hatchling sea turtles get caught up in it, and they don't find their way out to the ocean. Dolphins can see plastic bags out there, and they can eat it too. Birds will pick up the trash and try to eat it. All kinds of animals will try to ingest that plastic. So we can do things to help keep our beaches and waterways clean and help protect our wildlife. So here in Volusia County, we have all kinds of volunteer programs that relate to keeping our waterways clean. First, we have beach cleanups, and we do them after all of the major holidays. So after Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, New Year's Day, Earth Day, we'll go out and do a beach cleanup, and you're invited to join us. You can join us as a group, or you can go out on your own and just clean up an area of the beach that's your favorite. One big day that's coming up is International Coastal Cleanup that happens in September of every year. And this happens all around the world. People go out and clean up the coast. That can be at the beach, along the river, anywhere there's a coastline. Join us here in Volusia County and go out and join the International Coastal Cleanup and make a huge difference by cleaning up the coastline. And also there's an opportunity to use the Swell App. It's an app that you download on your phone from the Play Store, and you can log your cleanup with the Ocean Conservancy. And the Ocean Conservancy is an international organization that's tracking ocean trash. And you can record your data and contribute to international research related to trash, in addition to help just keeping the beach clean. So it's a great way to get involved. And there's a little video that you can watch on CleanSwell that'll show you how to use the app. The other thing you can do here in the county is adopt a beach. Each mile of the beach, you have the ability to adopt. Currently, all the miles are adopted, but if it's something you and your group want to do, you can get on the wait list. When a beach becomes available, you can go out there and adopt that mile and go out and clean it quarterly. And you've got to realize that every piece of trash that you pick up out there is going to make a difference, because whether it's big or small, it is something that could harm wildlife. So every piece of trash you pick up could be the piece of trash that would wind up in the stomach of an animal, and you could be saving a bird, a turtle, a manatee, anything that's out there. So go out there and volunteer and help to keep our waterways clean. So that's kind of the first step. Clean isn't the only step, though. We also want to keep our waterways tangle-free. And what we're talking about mostly is monofilament fishing line. So if you take a look here, you'll see a manatee that has its flipper wrapped up in fishing line. What happens is it gets wrapped around, and as they struggle to get out, it gets tighter and tighter, and it cuts off the circulation. They can lose their flipper because of this. You'll see a pelican here has the fishing line wrapped all around their beak, and it affects their ability to eat. And then you see a sea turtle, the same thing, wrapped around their flipper, wrapped around their neck. And then you'll see also a dolphin. The fishing line is wrapped around its dorsal fin. So the fishing line gets out there in the waterways, gets entangled in wildlife, and it threatens their ability to get around and their ability to eat. So there are things that you can do to help keep our waterways tangle-free. One thing you can do is the monofilament recycling program that we have. You'll notice at fishing docks all around the county there's a bin where anglers can drop off their monofilament fishing line. You can adopt one of these bins and recycle that fishing line. So you go out, remove the line that's there, and you turn it into one of the local centers to be recycled. It's a great way to keep the fishing line out of the water and recycle it. And there are bins all around the county, close to 200, I believe, bins. So there's a bin near you. So feel free to get in touch with us, and you can adopt one of those monofilament recycling bins. Another program that we have with entanglement is the Jetty Ambassador program. And during the summer months, we go out to the jetty at the Lighthouse Point Park, and we have two parts to the Jetty Cleanup. We have the county team that goes underwater and removes that monofilament from under the water on the rocks right there at the jetty. And then we have a team of people on the jetty, and we go out and inform the anglers about the cleanup project. We remove trash and we remove line from the jetty, on the walkway, and even on the rocks if you want to. So you're welcome to join us at the Jetty Ambassador program and get out there and get that fishing line off of the jetty. And again, what you'll be doing is you'll be reducing the entanglement risk for all of the wildlife that's out there. So you can help keep our areas clean, you can help them be tangle free, and the last thing that you can help them with is you can help them to be clear. So we want our water to be clear, right? Beautiful, clear, shining waters. And if you take a look at these pictures, what you're going to see is it's not always. We often get algae blooms, you know, that green that covers the surface of the water. Who wants to kayak in that? And then as we get algae in the water, it leads to fish kills. And then you get dead fish covering the surface of the water. That's even worse. And what it can do is create whole dead zones where everything is dead from the surface all the way down to the bottom. And what's happening right now is the algae is leading to the decline in seagrasses out there because the algae is blocking the light on the surface, and the seagrasses underneath need that light for photosynthesis. So we have a real decline in seagrasses right now, and you'll see in the picture what it used to look like when we had sunlight, and then when we have algae, you'll see the seagrasses are just dying off. So the idea is we have to keep our waterways clear so we don't have algae, so we don't have fish kills, so we don't have dead zones, and we don't have the loss of seagrass. So how can you do that? Well, we have some ways that you can do that, and it helps if you understand first, where does this algae come from? Where does the problem come from? And it's actually stormwater runoff. So if you are familiar with the water cycle, you probably learned this in high school, so we'll just kind of go over it. So what happens on the left is you've got the rain that comes down, it's in condensation, it hits the trees, it hits the grass, it infiltrates down into the water, and it recharges the aquifer. And then that water will run and get purified as it comes through the soil, becomes clean, and then it'll get into the waterways, into the rivers and lakes, and then it evaporates and then comes down as rain, and that's the cycle. That's the cycle that you learned in school, except that's not the cycle we have anymore. The cycle that we have right now is the urban water cycle. So now the rain comes down, and now it's coming down on the sidewalks, the driveways, the streets, the rooftops. It's not penetrating. What's happening is it's running off. As it's running off, it's picking up oil and things from the street. It's picking up fertilizer and pesticide from the yards. It's picking up metals from brake dust and all of these things. And then it's running off into the waterways. So stormwater runoff is creating a lot of the pollution. And that fertilizer specifically that's running off the yard is leading to the algae blooms in the waterways. So believe it or not, what you do in your yard is affecting what's happening in the waterways. So in order to help keep the waterways clear, there's a couple of volunteer programs that you can participate in that help with that as well. One of them is storm drain marking. So what we do is we put these round disc indicators on the storm drains, and they say no dumping drains directly to waterways. We want everybody to understand that what goes down the storm drain doesn't get filtered. It goes directly into the waterway, and that pollution is causing a lot of those problems that make the waterways not clear. If you have a storm drain in front of your house or in your yard, what you can do is just be responsible for making sure it's clear. The trash from uphill is going to run down the street. So if you just go out there and pick up any trash that's at your storm drain, you are helping to keep our waterways clean and clear that way. So those are a couple of ways that you can get involved with stormwater runoff, even from your own yard. So my guess is maybe a lot of this work is pretty physical. Maybe you don't want to do a beach cleanup. I hope you do. But there's some things that you can do without leaving your own house. And the first, probably most important thing, is to skip the fertilizer, especially in the summer months, June 1st through September 30th, because that's when the fertilizer ban is. That's when all the rain happens. That's our rainy season. And it is banned to use nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizer during these months. The reason is it's going to rain and it's going to run it off. So one, it doesn't benefit your yard, you're not doing any good. And two, the fertilizer goes directly into the waterways. And fertilizer does its magic, it makes green things grow. And in the water, that's algae. So the fertilizer from your yard is contributing to algae blooms in the waterways. So one thing you can do is sit in your hammock, prop your feet up, and don't fertilize your yard in the summertime. And then you will not contribute to the algae blooms in the waterway. So that's one thing you can do that's really, really easy. Here's another thing you can do. Stay in your hammock and don't mow. Create a no-mow zone, especially if you have a waterway nearby. If you have a retention pond, a river, any kind of waterways in your area, you want to create a 15-foot no-mow zone around that waterway. It's going to do a lot of things that are super beneficial. One is the roots of the plants that are around that no-mow zone are going to absorb any excess nutrients, that nitrogen and phosphorus, so it doesn't get into the waterways. And that's going to help to keep the waterways clear. So that 15-foot no-mow zone, the roots are going to be awesome. The second thing that's going to happen that's going to be beneficial is when you're mowing nearby, those grass clippings do not wind up in the waterways because, believe it or not, grass clippings are fertilizer. Grass clippings contain a lot of nitrogen, and when that grass clipping gets into the water, it's going to create that algae bloom again. So by having a 15-foot barrier zone of no-mow zone with pretty plants, you're preventing any grass clippings from getting into the waterways, which is going to contribute to algae blooms as well. So create that no-mow zone, do it with native plants, and then you don't have any work to do because the native plants will just thrive on their own and you can relax and enjoy the pretty flowers that are around your waterways. We talked a little bit about grass clippings near the waterways, but grass clippings even in your yard, make sure they don't wind up in the street, on the driveways, or on the sidewalks. And the reason goes back to the rain again. If you've got the grass clippings and you figure, I'll just blow them in the street, then it rains that afternoon, the rain picks up those grass clippings, the rain carries them down the storm drain, and then it goes out to the waterway, and again, you've got nitrogen going into the waterways from your own area because you have grass clippings in the street. So what you want to do is make sure you sweep those grass clippings back into your yard because they're free fertilizer. That nitrogen is going to go back and provide nutrients to your yard. You don't want them to go down the storm drain because that's going to add the nitrogen to the water, which is going to lead to the algae blooms, which leads to all those other problems. So make sure you keep those grass clippings right on your grass. They'll benefit you and they won't harm the waterways. We talked about in that no-mow zone to put native plants. Native plants are awesome because they require less work and they help to keep the water clean. So if you have native plants when you choose landscaping for around your house, do a little bit of research, find out what native plants are. We have a brochure you can pick up at any of our local centers that talk about what are those native plants. The beauty is you don't need excess water for them because they're used to our environment. They don't need fertilizer because they're used to our soil. And you just put them in and enjoy their beautiful flowers. It makes life really easy for you, and it's great for the waterways because, again, those nutrients are going to be taken up by the roots, so it doesn't run into the waterways, and you don't need to fertilize them, so you don't have to worry about fertilizer runoff that's going to eventually go to the waterways. So pick some pretty native flowers and use those when you're landscaping your yard. Less work for you and a lot prettier. If you want to go to the extra step, take out some of the turf grass that's in your yard and put those native plants in. Create a pollinator garden. You'll get butterflies attracted to your yard. Again, no fertilizer, which is awesome. No excess watering, which is awesome. And again, you won't get the runoff from your yard going into the waterways. So the more you can have native plants in your yard, the less turf, the better off you are. So we've been talking a lot about water quality and how choices that you make can affect water quality. But I want to change gears for just a second and talk about water quantity. And when we think about water, we think, hey, we're in Florida, we're a peninsula, we're surrounded by water, there's plenty of water, we don't have a water shortage problem. I want you to rethink that. So if we take a look at the Earth's water, let's look at the big picture, okay? 97% of the water is in the ocean. We can't water our yards with it, we can't drink it. So that means 3% of the water is fresh water. You're thinking, okay, that's pretty good. So now let's look at the next level. Out of that 3% of the water that's fresh water, we've got 70% of that is tied up in glaciers and ice caps. Okay, so that leaves us 30% that's in groundwater, more or less. About a small percentage of that, maybe 2% of that, is accessible through lakes, rivers, and in the soil. So if we look at the overall big picture of water quantity, what we're going to see is out of all the water on the planet, less than 0.5% of it is accessible to us for use. So we may be surrounded by water, but as far as water that's accessible to use, it's less than 1% of the water on the planet is accessible for us. So yes, we're surrounded by it, but we don't have as much as we think we do. So we need to think about what can we do to help conserve water, and it helps to understand where the water comes from. So if we take a look at this, you're going to see the Florida aquifer system. And we'll start on the right side where that rain coming down, just like we saw before. The rain's going to penetrate down, it's going to go through the different layers, and it's going to recharge that aquifer. Except when we have rooftop streets, sidewalks, and driveways, it just runs off, it doesn't penetrate, it goes into the waterways and picks up the pollution. So where the aquifer is not getting recharged at the level that it used to because we have more and more concrete surfaces, so we have less and less penetration of the water going down to the aquifer. That creates an issue. If you look here on the right side, what you're going to see is that there's a sinkhole there. What happens is as there's less and less water in the aquifer, there's less and less water to support the limestone. That limestone begins to collapse, and when that collapses, it creates a sinkhole. Again, depletion of water from the aquifer is one of the causes for a sinkhole, so we need to think about the supply of water and the runoff that's happening. So if you go over to the left side, you're going to see the natural spring. You'll see the spring is fed up from the aquifer. It kind of gives you both images, and what you'll see in the middle is the different levels of the wells. So you'll see the surface well, and then it goes down into the aquifer well and the different levels. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the water comes from. It comes from the aquifer. So if we have less and less water recharging the aquifer because we've got more and more development on the surface, then we have less water supply than we even expect. So I just want to give you the big picture that our water is not unlimited like we think. It really is limited, and we need to think wisely about what we're going to do to conserve it. All right, so there's a lot of things that we can do to conserve water outside of our homes. One thing you can do is install a rain barrel at your downspouts. That's going to collect all the water that comes off of your rooftop. And then you have a drum of 55 gallons of water that you can use for irrigation outside. So you can use this for watering your plants, you can use it for washing your car. It's rainwater that you can use. Prevents it from running off and less money on your water bill. The other thing is if you do have an installed irrigation system for your yard, make sure it's calibrated. Make sure you're not watering the sidewalk or the driveway, creating more runoff. So you can have a professional come out and calibrate it and make sure it's aiming the right direction and conserve water outside of your home. Just to give you some numbers, an irrigation system, if you do have it outside, it can use anywhere from 1/2 to 2.65 gallons per minute to water a 12-foot radius. Think how big your yard is. Think of how many gallons of water you might be using. So again, double check, make sure it's calibrated. My plan is always remove the turf grass and put in a flower garden of native plants. But lots of options outside. There's also things that you can do inside to conserve water. So let's think about your shower. So the average shower can use anywhere from 2 to 5 gallons per minute. Think about your last shower. How many minutes was your last shower? Be honest. Now multiply that, if you have an older home, by 5 gallons. One shower, 10-minute shower, it could be 50 gallons of water. Picture a milk jug, 50 of them. So take shorter showers, or another option is to use a low-flow shower head. So you can save water that way. Also, if you prefer baths, use a bath. 36 gallons for a full bathtub. Fill it a third full, 12 gallons. So nice option there. For toilets, you can get a water saver toilet because toilets can be anywhere from 1 to 5 gallons in a flush. So you can find a water saver toilet for that. In your sink, anywhere from 1.5 gallons to 4 gallons per minute from running water in the sink. So think about brushing your teeth. How many of you leave the water running? How long do you brush your teeth? Let's say 2 minutes. So 5 gallons in 2 minutes, you just wasted 10 gallons of water while you were brushing your teeth. Simple thing you can do is turn the water off. Same for washing dishes. If you wash the dishes in the sink, turn the water off in between each one. Anytime your water is running, think about how many gallons per minute you could be using. So some simple things you can do for that. For your dishwasher and your clothes washer, they use, it depends. Dishwasher can be anywhere from 5.5 to 11 gallons. Clothes washer anywhere from 18 to 40 gallons. I know you need to wash dishes and clothes, but a really good option is to make sure you have full loads for each. So when you are running it, you're taking advantage of the water that you're using. So just make sure that you've got full loads for both of those. So it's really up to us to conserve water. We can all make choices, whether it's to go out there and volunteer on any of those projects we talked about, or making choices right in your very own home. But it really is your job to make sure that our waterways stay clean, clear, and tangle-free. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you make some choices today to help our waterways.